First, 7 p.m. Note, this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge such at this time. Owen from Bourne Enterprise. Please refrain from using flash photography. Thank you. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the following conference line: 1-929-205-6099, Zoom meeting ID 897-1229-3538, password Bourne, all caps. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes. I'm going to call the public session into order, and let's have a moment of silence to recognize our troops and public safety personnel. Okay, salutes the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we vision and mission? Anyone?
I'll read it. Bourne is a proud community that embraces change while respecting the rich heritage of the town and its villages. It is a municipality based on strong fiscal government with a durable economy that recognizes the rights of all citizens, respects the environment, especially the coastal areas of the community, and the amenities that it affords. Bourne embraces excellent education and offers to citizens a healthy, active lifestyle.
Okay.
I can read it. Mission. Bourne will maximize opportunities for social and economic development while retaining an attractive, sustainable, and secure coastline and environment for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. Through responsible and professional leadership and in partnership with others, Bourne will strive to improve the quality of life for all residents living and working in the larger community.
Thank you. So public comments on non-agenda items. I don't know if anybody has signed up for public comment, but public comments are allowed for up to a total of 12 minutes at the beginning of each meeting. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes for comment. Board members are unable to respond due to the requirements of the open meeting law. So do we have anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none. We're moving on, moving quickly. I missed the shout out. I can't forget that. Sorry, I did have one this evening. Promise I'll get better at that. I'm only chaired a couple of meetings now, but I do want to make sure to shout out to our Bourne Fire Department. They do have their centennial celebration coming up. July, what's our date for that? 12th, thank you. 100 years, so, shout out to them, and I'm sure we'll have more. And anyone else have a shout out?
Shout out to our lifeguards who started I think it was last week, but they're out there in Monmouth Beach, and we have 2 towers out there, so they're fully staffed. Because I went over the other day to try to buy a T-shirt for Bourne Community Voting, and I saw them, out there working. So it's nice to see that we have a beach that people have an option to use. So welcome to them.
Anyone else? All right, so we're real excited. We have an update this evening from the Garden Club and a request for planter signs. We have
Jan.
Our Jan is here to present. Jan, just tell us your name and your village.
My name is Jan Rogers, and I live at 17 Shaker Drive, and am the president of the Abtuxet Garden Club of Bourne. Many of our Garden Club members are here tonight to support this proposal. Abtuxet Garden Club was founded in 1938, almost 90 years ago. We currently have 78 members. The object of the club is to promote an interest in flower arranging, along with gardening and aid in the conservation of trees, plants, and natural resources. We educate and encourage public civic planting of native plants and pollinators. Our many community projects keep members engaged year-round in conservation and civic beautification. On Arbor Day, we worked with the Bourne Public Schools and the Bourne Library. We offer an annual scholarship to any Bourne student interested in pursuing the study of horticulture and environmental studies. Club members visit Bourne Nursing Home and Bourne senior residents and provide garden therapy every month. We currently fill and maintain the 17 planters on Main Street, 2 planters at the library, and the Village Neighborhood Gardens at Sagamore Beach, Monument Beach, and Katomet. The club also plants and maintains 2 historic gardens at the Briggs McDermott House and 3 gardens at Eptuxet Trading Post. In the last year, Eptuxet Garden Club members have funded and installed 2 pollinator gardens as well. 1 garden at the library and the newest at the Valley Community Gardens, which I recently learned has 100 plots. We have 2 major fundraisers that support some of the civic projects. We are members of the Garden Club Federation of Massachusetts, the New England Federation, and the National Federation of Garden Clubs. I'm here tonight to obtain authorization to purchase and install signs that would be placed in the town-owned self-watering planters. I'm roughly looking at something like this. I think you received a document, but I can pass this around so you have a sense of what we're talking about. The planters on Main Street and at Town Hall. The signage could read, planted by Eptuxet Garden Club, or with our logo, or strictly Eptuxet Garden Club. To date, there are no signage, there's no signage that acknowledges any contribution by the garden club in the town. The small signs are made by Nameplate and Panel Technology, a company near Chicago, who have made quality signage for Arnold Arboretum, Heritage Gardens, and countless other gardens around the country for 40 years. Our sign would measure 4 by 5, or 3 by 5, like this, in the smaller planters, and 4 by 6 in the larger planters, located in Buzzards Bay Park and at Town Hall. Signs will be attached with a metal stake that will be removed in the wintertime. The metal labels are made of polysensitive aluminum, UV stable image, permanently sealed, temperature resistant, and are recyclable. Eptuxet Garden Club will donate the total cost of the signs thanks to a very generous gift from one of our members. We'll provide a sample, and I think you've received some things. All I want to say in addition is that community garden clubs provide free value to any town by creating naturally beautiful places, public places, and encouraging sustainable garden practices and environmental consciousness. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I'll
Madam
go
Chair?
around and I'll start.
And I'll just pass this so you see, and the stake is about 7 inches, so it's not a little, we're not talking about like a barbecue skewer. It's substantial. It's what you see if you go to Heritage Gardens. It's similar in size, and we'll have that kind of a pitch.
To me, we have a lot of things like this that go around town, and people ask, who donated the money for this, or who spearheaded this project. So I think this is a perfect way to give recognition to what your organization has done.
I grew up on the North Shore, and I lived in Virginia a long time, but my mother's friends were all involved in the garden club in Danvers, Massachusetts. And I recently sort of re-engaged with some of them, but they have signs like we're welcome to Danvers at the Middleton line. It says maintained by, and there's a couple of those locations, and they've done that a long time. I think it's a nice acknowledgement of our efforts. It also, I think, speaks well of a community that then engages and allows organizations to volunteer and do a nice job for the
Well, the
betterment
thing
of the town.
is your organization's done a lot over the years.
They are.
And it goes unsaid, because they assume it's the town, when it's been your group that's been doing this. And so, to me, you don't get enough attention for what you've done over the years.
Thank
so.
you.
Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, I really do feel this is really important because there's so many committees and so many people that do volunteer in the town, and this is one way of acknowledging what do those people do, not necessarily, it's really important, and it'll hopefully bring more attention to the group, and they'll look into the history of it, and maybe some more members as well, so.
Well, it's comical almost when they tell me tales of how many gallons of water that they have in the back of their car to make sure the efforts look good. And all the places they forage at Christmas time to fill the urns with greens. And you go,
Oh, yeah.
oh, they look lovely. Well, you don't know where we get those greens.
I really appreciate it.
Anne Marie?
No, it's just an incredible organization, yeah. I mean, Bourne is beautiful largely in part due to not only the works of the DPW on fields and edging grasses and trimming, but the beautification piece of it, those little touches that you've done all over, both sides of the bridges, right?
Right, right.
Has really brought a lot of beauty to Bourne.
I have water in my car now because I watered the boxes for Betsy when they at the Picasset Post Office.
In our car too, ready for anything.
You do.
Any other questions?
My only question is, it just says planted by Eptuxet Garden of,
We could
And-
also just put Eptuxet Garden.
no, I mean, it's
you own 'em.
not just planted, it's planted and maintained.
It is,
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, and that's what my comment was, that planted and maintained by the Eptuxet Garden Club of Bourne, because I think they're both really, and the maintenance is really, really important. So I think it's a great idea. I just would like the recognition of maintenance as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
We
definitely.
clean those up, and then we put all the greens in there for Christmas time, so, anyway, thank you.
Well,
We
thank you.
appreciate the
Thank you.
acknowledgement.
I think
Thank you.
everybody is in agreement. I won't further say it's a
all
wonderful
good.
idea, and thank you so much for coming.
So do we have to approve this
We do.
request?
I was
Make a
gonna say,
motion
we
to
do need a
approve the
motion,
request
yeah.
for signage
I was just going to say, do we have a motion?
for the Eptuxet Garden Club?
Thanks.
Second.
All right, so we have Anne Marie made the motion. All right. And a second from Peter. Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm assuming
No.
you'll be doing your own little staking.
Okay, yeah.
You don't have to order the DPW to go around.
Okay,
The DPW has been great.
good, thank you.
They're really good partners.
All right, so go ahead. Here we go. Roll call vote. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Melissa, yes. 5-0-0. Unanimous. Thank you. Excited to see your signs.
I'm gonna fix this chair. For some reason, I'm almost on the ground.
Oh, boy.
Shrinking by the
Oh,
minute.
yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah.
for
have a great
coming in.
night.
Good night.
Probably a month.
Okay. We'll be looking.
All right. Next, we have a presentation by our health director on our opioid needs assessment and strategic plan.
Hi guys, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Caitlin Shea, the health director for the town of Bourne, and I worked with our consultants, Advocates for Human Potential, over the last year to develop and implement a needs assessment and then strategic plan for an implementation plan for our opioid abatement for the town of Bourne. I'll turn it over to Kelly with AHP to start us off.
Thanks, Caitlin. Do I get slide, can I have some slide control so I can share, or does somebody in the room do that?
You should be able to share.
Okay, let me see. Not seeing that option right now. I have record, transcript. Oh, here we go. Hold on, I think I got it, folks. Give me 1 second. Can folks see my whole screen or just the presentation?
Whole screen.
Full screen, all right, trying again. All right, what about now?
Presentation.
Yep. It just needs
Presentation
to,
with,
it needs to be expanded, I think, is all.
okay, sure. And presentation without my notes, correct? You guys don't need to see those?
No, we see your notes.
We see notes.
Yeah.
Just hit play, maybe. Or
Hit which button?
Slide might, the play,
slide,
yeah.
the-
Slide
yeah.
share.
Or the layout.
Hold on, I should.
It's okay.
Apologies.
No worries. These technical things
Okay.
happen.
Well, I haven't used Teams in, I don't know, 2 years. I haven't used Zoom rather, we use Teams. So I'm trying to.
There we go.
There you are.
You got
Perfect.
Just the presentation?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate you bearing with me. And thank you, Caitlin, for the introduction, and thank you to the Select Board for inviting us to speak with you tonight. My name is Kelly Joseph, and it's great to be here with several members of the Bourne Opioid Settlement Advisory Group who will be co-presenting with me. I work at Advocates for Human Potential, or AHP. AHP is a behavioral health consulting organization, and while we do work across the country, our headquarters is actually in Sudbury, and I live locally, so it makes this work especially meaningful to me. Last summer, the town of Bourne issued a request for proposals to find a partner to support a comprehensive needs assessment and strategic planning process. And the goal was to build a strong data-informed foundation for investing the opioid settlement funds in ways that reflect the needs and priorities of the community. AHP was selected for this work, and I've had the privilege of serving as the project director. And over the last several months, my team and I have worked really closely with Caitlin and the advisory group, and really getting to know the Bourne community and supporting this very important process. So to begin, I'll just briefly walk us through our agenda for this evening. I will start by providing an overview of the project background and the process that we followed for the past several months. Then I'll share a summary of the key findings from the community needs assessment. And a quick disclaimer, a member of my team was supposed to be here tonight to present this section. It's her specialty area, but she had a family emergency. So while I don't have her research credentials, I'll do my best to share these findings, and if there's any follow-up questions or further information needed, I can follow up with her afterwards. Then you'll hear directly from members of the Opioid Settlement Advisory Group who will speak to the strategic planning and decision-making process that guided the selection of strategies. And finally, we'll open things up for any questions or comments from you all. So I'd like to begin by sharing this visual, which just illustrates how we've been organizing our work. So this phased strategic planning framework has really guided our approach from the very start. And as the advisory group has heard me mention on several occasions throughout this process, this is a long-term effort, right? The opioid settlement funds will be distributed over an extended period through the year 2038. So it's essential to take thoughtful and sustainable approach from the outset. And I applaud Bourne for being thoughtful and kind of wanting to make sure that this was done really well from the start. AHP was engaged to support the town through these kind of first two phases of the process. First was the assessment, during which we engaged a broad range of stakeholders and gathered data to really understand the current state of the community. And second, we facilitated a collaborative planning process that used those data insights to really elevate the key priorities and guide the decision-making around what would be the most impactful uses of the settlement funds. The comprehensive plan that we've developed and that you all should have received a copy of really streamlines these two phases of work into a foundational roadmap, and then the town can then use that moving forward to implement and with ongoing evaluation of the strategies over time. So first and foremost, our overarching goal throughout this project was really to ensure that community input and opportunities for engagement were dispersed throughout, particularly from individuals with lived and living experience with substance and opioid use disorder. Our work began in November with a kickoff meeting, I think in the same building that you all are in right now, the Veterans Memorial Community Building. From there, we moved directly into several months of data collection. That included a survey, key informant interviews, and a series of focus groups. In March, we dedicated our efforts to really analyzing all of that data gathered and drafting a needs assessment report, which captured key community gaps and challenges, but also local strengths, right, and opportunities, and resident identified priorities for funding. In April, we facilitated 3 strategic planning sessions with Bourne's advisory group. These sessions were designed to help the group first interpret the needs assessment findings. Secondly, was to identify the most pressing areas for concern. And lastly, and the group will tell you, which was hard, but was to ultimately select evidence-informed strategies to use the town's opioid settlement funds on. Once these strategies were selected, it was really important for us to bring this decision back to the broader community for review and feedback. And we hosted a community listening session in May where residents and service providers had the opportunity to learn more about the settlement funding at large, hear that summary of the needs assessment findings, and then provide their own input on the proposed strategies for implementation. Following this feedback, we developed Bourne's comprehensive opioid settlement plan, and that's what brings us here today, which we're really pleased to present the overview to the Select Board. So we started this process by conducting a needs assessment, again, to hear directly from community members, those working in the substance use field, and from both individuals and family members with lived experience of opioid addiction. The purpose behind this process was to identify gaps, needs, and trends in opioid use and recovery, and again, to gather input from community on priority for the town's use of settlement funds. So I want to share two quick quotes that were featured in our needs assessment report. This one was from a clinician working in Bourne who described a key challenge that we heard from so many people, which is that there was just a lack of resources and access to supports, which makes it really difficult for Bourne residents to get immediate help, right? When that moment comes for somebody where they say, I want to change, or I want to help, or I have a loved one who I want to support, the immediacy of getting somebody connected to a support is really critical, and that's been an ongoing challenge. Similar feedback from a healthcare provider working with Bourne residents indicated that the town really lacks a centralized hub for outreach and support, making it really hard to build a sense of connected community assistance. So regarding our methods, our approach to the needs assessment included an analysis of like public and existing data, right? Sources that are already around that help us understand the prevalence and impact of opioids in the community. We did a community survey, we did key informant interviews and focus groups. And in total, we surveyed 281 full and part-time residents. We spoke with 50 people who live and work in Bourne, and 18 local organizations or groups were represented in this data collection process. I'll call out specifically for the qualitative data, so that's those interviews and focus groups. We really intentionally targeted this outreach to individuals and groups with specialized experience in opioid use disorder, or people with that lived and living experience, making sure that they were the people that are gonna have the deepest, kind of most experienced input to share in this process, and we wanted to make sure we were gathering all of that narrative information from those folks. 58% of our focus group and interview sample reported lived experience, which is a really strong percentage of people with that lived experience. So this is just a really quick snapshot of the constellation of stakeholders that we engaged in the data collection process. Stakeholders included providers across the substance use disorder continuum of care, so that's prevention, harm reduction, treatment and recovery. Representatives from the schools, representative from healthcare, housing, tribal community, and first responders, just to name a few. So for quantitative analysis, we analyzed, like I said, an array of secondary data that already existed from the county and state and local sources. We also developed our own survey questions, and we utilized a distribution platform called SINT, and we were able to get 281 survey respondents, which for a community of this size is a really strong response rate. We were really pleased with that. This slide shows just an overview of the demographics from those 281 people who participated in the survey. So included here are racial and gender identity, median age, and family income, and education level. The demographic characteristics between the survey sample that we collected and the population of Massachusetts matched by 93%. And all that means is that we can with fairly good confidence say that the findings from our survey are an accurate representation of the trends across the state. One additional data point to share about the survey is we asked all survey respondents about their current and past experience with opioid use, and a breakdown of those responses is what's reflected in that pie chart. For full-time Bourne residents specifically, 36% reported misuse of opioids at some point in their lifetime. These would be people that we would consider having lived experience. And of that portion of people who reported lifetime opioid use, nearly half said that they had misused opioids within the last 30 days. So those might be people that we would consider active, as in some form of active substance use. So I, again, share this data point specifically because these are the folks whose input we in the state really want to ensure are prioritized in this process and really elevating their perspective into the decision-making process. So we were really pleased with that. So this, oh, sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Was somebody chiming in with something? This summary reflects the key themes from our needs assessment analysis. So we framed our findings into a couple of different categories: community strengths, barriers and challenges, service gaps, and funding priorities. And funding priorities really means how folks believe the opioid settlement fund should be spent to best serve Bourne residents. So really asking their perception. Where would you like to see the funds spent? Prevention, harm reduction, and getting some direction from residents on that. So for community strengths, participants highlighted a strong collaboration between sectors, really suggesting that there's a good foundation for coordinated response, which is great to see. Access to treatment and harm reduction services was also reported as being generally available. And this is also where we heard that there's been some improvements in community level stigma, right? Stigma being decreasing in some areas. There's a growing community awareness of naloxone and fentanyl test strips, which are really important for harm reduction approaches. And that could be that could be contributing to some of the community's declining overdose rates. For barriers and challenges, despite some progress, stigma, especially within some healthcare settings, and regarding medication for opioid use disorder, that's MOUD, that remains a persistent challenge and barrier for folks. Participants frequently cited transportation, housing, and financial instability as limiting their ability to access care. Older adults in particular expressed discomfort discussing their substance use, really pointing to a need for some age-specific engagement strategies. And sustainability concerns were voiced regarding ongoing funding or lack thereof, or concern about funding streams, and overcoming challenges as potential concerns. As for service gaps, a centralized hub for behavioral health resources, again, doesn't exist and leads to a lot of confusion and gaps in access, what we observed across all age groups. Participants were calling for an increase in school-based and community-wide prevention education. And even though awareness is rising, some full-time residents reported a lack of knowledge or knowing where to access things like harm reduction and fentanyl test strips. And lastly is funding priorities. So prevention education emerged as a top funding priority across all participant groups that we spoke to. Individuals with lived experience advocated for more investments in treatment and reentry supports. Harm reduction was very broadly accepted as a practical and kind of cost-feasible approach. And peer support was reported to be widely used, but actually ranked really low as a priority for funding, which could point to that there's prevalent access to peer support already, could be contributed to maybe some dissatisfaction with peer supports, or a number of other mitigating factors, but was an interesting finding that we wanted to call out. So based on the findings of the survey, focus groups, and interviews, my team synthesized key priority areas to help guide the strategic planning process based on the needs assessment that were most prevalently reported by the community. So in no particular order, these were the priorities: transportation access, resource navigation, prevention education, stigma reduction, and increased access to harm reduction. So I think I'm handing things over to Caitlin to talk a little bit more about the planning and decision making, but I think you're gonna hear from several members of the advisory group, Kristen Donahue and Beth Griffin as well.
Thanks, Kelly. So as the needs assessment was coming to a close, we developed an advisory group to go over those results and start our strategic planning process. That group consisted of members from Bourne's Fire, Health, and Police Departments, Bourne Public Schools, Bourne Council on Aging, and the Bourne Substance Free Coalition. We are responsible for articulating a vision for Bourne's use of the opioid settlement funds and affirming priorities for spending based off of the needs assessment, and deciding on initial strategies for implementation. Facilitated by AHP, we participated in 3 strategic planning groups back in April, and I'll turn it over to Kristen Donahue to talk a little bit more about the vision and mission for that. Thanks.
Thank you. So, as anyone who knows who's been on strategic planning before, the vision and mission really do establish kind of the direction and the goal. So, I'm thrilled to be presenting this slide. We spent a lot of time working on this. For the vision, it was really critical that we focused on the substance misuse. So it reads, we envision a community free of substance misuse, where treatment and harm reduction are readily available and all residents can adopt safe and healthy choices to avoid the destruction that comes with substance misuse. And then that led right into the mission. The town of Bourne is committed to a data-informed and community-engaged approach to decision-making regarding the allocation of opioid settlement funds to ensure that resources are directed toward initiatives that reflect the community's identified need and priorities, and that are aligned with the statewide commitment to opioid abatement. And Beth will jump in regarding decision-making.
Hi, I thought,
Do you want me to do that one? I
yeah,
can
I
continue.
think that's what we had discussed.
Sorry, I wasn't sure what I'm having. Okay, sorry, folks. So we did use a criteria that was facilitated by Kelly and her team in making the decision regarding to all of those areas. Is what was the immediacy? How quickly could we see the impact for the targeted groups that we're working with? Do we have the funds available, and is it a fiscally responsible way to use those funds right now? The feasibility, of course, is always important. Do we have the resources to be able to allocate and implement the plan, both in the immediate and in, the 2 to 5 year range kind of piece? What do we need to look at for that? And then obviously, is there readiness? Is there stakeholder engagement for all of these initiatives? And then that sweet spot is that intersection of all 4 of those circles and hitting that nail on the head. So that was the process and the criteria that we used for coming up with kind of the next steps.
So I think I'm gonna pick it up here. So first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I think for many years I've worked with individuals and families who have been affected by substance misuse. And I'm here on behalf of the advisory group to share the thoughtful and deliberate process we undertook in response to the opioid crisis and the settlement funds allocated to address it. Grounded in findings from our community needs assessment, our advisory team carefully reviewed and discussed 19 possible strategies. Through that series of 3 strategic planning sessions, we reached consensus on the 5 evidence-informed strategies that align with the Massachusetts State Subdivision Agreement, which outlines the allowable use of the opioid settlement funds. These strategies fall within 4 key categories: connection to care, support for people in treatment and recovery, prevention, and harm reduction. Prevention was our top priority. We have consistently voiced strong interest in taking proactive steps to prevent substance misuse, especially among our youth. Teaching young people healthy coping skills, emotional regulation, and resiliency is a vital investment in their future and in the overall wellness of our community. Prevention means getting ahead of the crisis, not just responding to it. To meet this need, we are recommending the implementation of new prevention curricula for Bourne K-8 students. Connection to care was also identified as a major barrier from the assessment. Residents often struggle to navigate and access appropriate care. To address this, we are recommending a partnership with a behavioral health coordination service that provides 24/7 support, helping individuals and families connect to the mental health and substance use treatment service when they need it. Older adults were also emerged as a population in need of targeted intervention. The assessment revealed older adults reported discomfort in discussing substance use. To address this, we are proposing additional funding for the Visiting Nurses Association, the VNA, to implement the evidence-based SBIRT. What that means is, it's a screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment tool for this population. So again, it's trying to create a safe environment for them to have a discussion. In additional strategy is we want to support our people in treatment and recovery. This was another strategy that was identified. Transportation in Bourne has been a long barrier in accessing treatment and recovery services. As part of our support for people in recovery, we are proposing a partnership with a vendor to provide transportation to treatment, recovery supports, and other opioid use disorder services. Finally, but in no way least, is harm reduction. This was a critical area identified in the assessment. We are recommending a partnership with a local syringe service program to bring mobile harm reduction services, bringing life-saving resources directly into our neighborhoods, reducing risk and improving access. It's important, I feel, to emphasize each of these strategies is supported by the data we collected from our needs assessment and the input we received from residents and people with lived experience. These recommendations represent building blocks, not final decisions. They are meant to guide deeper community conversations and set the stage for a more informed, sustainable implementation process. Our goal is now to review the comprehensive plan developed by AHP in partnership with our team and begin to follow the roadmap for implementation and sustainability they presented, which will be discussed on further slides. I just want to thank you for your time, your leadership, and your continued commitment to the health and well-being of our community members.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Kristen. In addition to the 5 strategies that Beth just discussed, we also identified 2 additional funding recommendations. One being the continuation of the Select Board's mini grant project, and 2, to hire an implementation coordinator. The mini grants have been proven to be an effective approach to enhance community-based OUD strategies and services, and we recommend that these continue to be awarded on an annual basis, perhaps to identify and combat some of the other strategies that weren't identified as key priorities within the needs assessment, but we know that are ongoing, like access to recovery services, like housing, step-down housing, stuff like that, which is where we've seen a big application for those within those mini grants so far. As we were engaged in the assessment and planning process, the group acknowledged a significant effort that would be required to effectively manage these implementations over the next 10 years. And the process that we have here with AHP has set up a great roadmap for implementation, but coordinating the effort also needs to be properly resourced, which is why we're recommending hiring an implementation coordinator to help ensure that the town's abatement activities are managed effectively and aligned with all our strategic goals. Responsibilities of the coordinator would include leading various working groups, data collection, tracking, and reporting, preparing reports and presentations to update town stakeholders and residents, and to pursue supplemental funding to sustain and expand on our opioid settlement funding projects. All right, next slide. So we want to provide a little snapshot of what the opioid settlement funding is so far. As of now, the town is expected to receive a little over $1.4 million, but we're anticipating that to be a little higher as another agreement has been settled earlier this year. We've received over $433,000 in payments to date and have spent approximately $135,000. Spending to date has included the Select Board mini grants, the installation of a sterilist machine at the Sagamore Beach Fire Station, and the funding for the work that we've done with AHP so far. The funds utilized with the Select Board mini grants went to several local organizations and will provide housing assistance, essential supports for children in foster care and those in kinship and grandparent care, the installation of nalox boxes around town, prevention, education, speaker funding, and basic needs supports for women in recovery. If all the selected strategies that we've identified tonight are implemented in FY26, we're anticipating the annual spending to be about $150,000. And a more detailed breakdown of that budget is within the comprehensive plan. Next slide, Kelly. Thank you. AHP, in collaboration with our advisory group, created a comprehensive plan that has 4 main components: a strategic plan, implementation plan, a monitoring and evaluation plan, and a sustainability plan. The comprehensive plan will help Bourne get started on implementing the 5 chosen strategies by proactively setting a course, operationalizing our vision, and tracking our progress, and securing long-term impact. Each component of this plan serves a specific and complementary role, but together they ensure we move forward with accountability, clarity, adaptability, and sustainability. And this roadmap to support. So the comprehensive plan, this is one of the elements that's within it for each of our actions for our strategies. The comprehensive plan will serve as a foundational roadmap for the town and future coordinator that is tasked with leading these efforts. It will guide the implementation of the community's opioid abatement efforts in a clear and organized and strategic way, ensuring that each step taken aligns with our shared vision and goals. And by outlining specific actions, responsibilities, timelines, and resources, this roadmap will help us stay on course with our plan and help us make informed decisions as we advance further in our opioid settlement funding work over the next 20 years. Any questions?
All right. So we'll go around the select board and see who has any comments. Anyone?
Really thorough presentation. Thank you. It's a lot of work. The support system, so the correlation between the support and the people that feel like they need better age-related group support, do they all work together? So if those components are addressed, and I can see with the implementation with the strategic plan you have,
Like
that should kind of lift the,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's, the statistics are interesting for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a challenge.
No, I love the plan. It's aggressive, as it should be. You know, this is a crisis, and we need to get aggressive with it. I'm thrilled that, you know, the money is going to be sustainable over several years. And I hope that, that with an individual who is responsible for specific to this is going to ensure the success, right? Because of the structure and the nature of the strategic planning that was presented tonight, it's going to require some expertise in implementation. So I think that's a key piece of this being as successful as it can be for our town. We're talking about our community. We're talking about our members of our community who are struggling by no fault of their own. The real piece for me too, I think that's vitally important, is that the stigma piece, right? Yes, we can have education and outreach and prevention and try to reach the young children, and get them in a healthier path and recognizing self-care and self-awareness and things like that. But I think another key piece is educating the public in general. How do we, as members of the community, how do we support individuals? We have trained firefighters and police and things like that. They're trained in these fields, but I think another key piece of this is how do we as a community embrace this plan and this outreach. I think that's going to be instrumental as well.
One question is, if you go back to the slide where it says the mini grants that have already been awarded, one of them was housing assistance. Can you explain in more detail what that assistance is?
It said I think it actually had for recovery at the end of it.
Yeah,
Housing
so
assistance
there
for people
are,
recovered.
I believe there were 3 separate groups that applied for housing assistance. One was specifically for women in step-down housing, so from detox and entering into the housing market, where they get their basic supports. One was housing scholarships, so the groups that were awarded had the $5,000 and could award them to people who applied to their housing scholarships, whether that be detox housing, whether that be step-down housing, and then additionally we had one group that was supporting a specific individual who had back paid rent due to opioid use disorder, and so they funded his back pay and rent.
And as far as the transportation barrier for people to get to their appointments, we have a great program with the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority that may have a way of getting those people to their appointments and back, unless it's a clinical type transportation and not emergency transport like an ambulance. That's different because they can't provide that. But I mean, I think. And if you've reached out to the CCRTA, they may be able to identify ways where they can help. Because they take people to regular medical appointments as it is. And the MBTA also has the RIDE program that takes people to individual appointments. So, and we are an MBTA community. So, I mean, I think between the two, we can try to identify ways of helping help identify transportation options.
I think where those groups stand right now, it was limited where they could bring our residents. So if they had a doctor that they were already seeing for mental health counseling, and that was outside of their range, they couldn't get to that facility any longer. Or if they needed to get to a specific substance treatment location, they weren't always available to bring them to those specific locations. So this would just expand on what we do have.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if there's any rules that apply to sort of somebody going to treatment. Can they drive when they leave, or do they have to have somebody drive them out too? It's like
question,
you can't take an Uber for surgery. It's kind of similar, right? So we have to watch those things. MJ, anything?
I thought this was really great. I thought it was.
I'm for the public when she said.
Yeah, I know. I still want to say a few things too.
I thought this was really great. I participated in some of the things, and I thought it was really good discussions. I liked some of the thoughtful terminology of misuse rather than abuse. I think that's really good. I really like the comments about healthy coping skills and emotional regulation as preventative, like, how to really help people. The access to mental health services is a major issue, not just in the opioid crisis, but for anyone with mental health issues. The care coordination is so difficult, so difficult. So those kind of supports that make a person be able to focus on getting better and not like stressing out
Technicalities.
yeah, I mean, it's just so, I love the partnership with the behavioral health 24/7, not just for crisis, but, when you need help, you need help. And so I thought it was really well done, and I think the priorities are really good, and I'm really happy that we're working coordinated with a group of really dedicated people to kind of get things happening. So thank you very much.
I just one question on the transportation, just because I worked with my son who's disabled with the RTA. How crucial is the 24/7 component of that transportation? Is that something it would be easier to
crucial.
keep with one
With one vendor service.
with one
yeah.
service? Okay, yeah, just curious about that because that's the only limiting factor. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just want to add, I mean, I think I love this, it's very robust, and I do a lot of work in my other world that I walk in when it comes to, recovery support and, stigma and all of these things. And I think, you really touched on a lot of everything. I even saw tribal communities in there, which is, sometimes often ignored, so that was really good to see. And, it's just important, I think, that you talk about the transportation, because that was a big piece, I think, for tribal communities specifically, that was an issue, people getting to and from treatment. And then when you talked about, the stigma, I think, I have to say, all of you that sit in the Bourne Substance Free Coalition have really done well to change that sort of face of addiction in Bourne. And it's not always well received, and it does, people really do, sometimes shame first. So I think it's really important that we're doing this work. Something maybe just to think about, and I love this, is I understand this is the grant for Bourne, but I know that Plymouth, it has their sort of Plymouth County outreach, and they have a hub of like all the different police departments all throughout, Plymouth County that sit in, High Point, the churches, the whoever. So maybe that's something we could, think about later. And I know Beth was probably like, hey, so, it's been really amazing, and you just, it might be something we think about for part of that to, maybe even have greater reach, right, in the end.
Help
So-
centralize
so,
some of
yeah,
that
yeah.
support, yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's all I have. Anyone else?
I think it's come a long way in a short amount of time, because we didn't have these options before or identify these problems, and now we're starting to have a system in place, that people can go to, and I give Elizabeth Griffin and the Substance Coalition kudos for all they've done over the years to try to keep this out, to try to get it out there in the community and let people know, what's going on. And so the fact that this money was out there and we're able to do something with it positively, it's a good thing.
Excellent. All right. Anyone in the public have any comments they'd like to? Sure, come on up. Come on up. You got to come up to the mic and just introduce yourself. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Linda Cubelis. Grew up in Buzzards Bay, right on the hill behind here, so longtime resident. I'm a little passionate about this, so excuse me if I seem a little nervous or whatever, but it touched my family deeply. I lost a brother to the disease. My son struggled for years, and I am one of the very few in our group. I am the president of Parents Supporting Parents, and we were one of the mini grants that we were given. We also hosted the focus group, I believe, with co-focused, or you asked if you could come to our meeting and join in with the parents, and we had people come. So I guess what kind of struck me, I could not make the last meeting or I would have been here, but we've gotten a grant from Dennis, Yarmouth, Barnstable, Falmouth, Mashpee, and housing was one of their main concerns. We've gotten good-sized grants to be able to help the people that lost their lives to this disease, and we want to try and help others. We've lost 33 members of our small support group. Their children have died. So I'm pretty passionate when it comes to hearing what goes on in the room, we have speakers every other week who are in long-term recovery. There are 3 things that they credit for their long-term recovery: their program, an experience with a higher power, whatever that may be, and long-term sober housing. And it's like the only way that they are able to get long-term recovery. So I started the group because I was fortunate. I had an education that my parents gave me, and I could find a way, even though I was a single mom, but I found a way to always get my son into sober living when it was time to put him in sober living, when he would finally accept it. And it just seems like when you know something works and you get these heartfelt thank yous from people who have gotten their life back, and then, you know, we can help them with a little grant, but we can't help them with much. And these are people whose lives were affected, and I totally agree with education, regulation for the kids when they're younger. Like, all those areas are important. I will say the transportation, I was a little confused because almost everybody whose children are in our group, and when I say children, I mean all the way to adults, you know, like I'm talking in their 40s to, from teens to 40s, but the teens all have insurance through their parents, and the families take them to treatment. The older ones all have access to Mass Health, which gets them the PT1 form where they can go to wherever they have to go. You know, they just have to make sure they make the appointment ahead of time. So I did want to just bring that up as an alternative way of transportation too, so that all the funds, so that you look at the ways that we can spend money that we already have, rather than putting extra money just because someone's going to take a private ride to someplace, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I know it's too late for this round of grants, but I sincerely hope in the future you will give that a little bit more consideration so that we can help the lives that, I mean, you know, we're still losing kids. We've been fortunate so far in the last 9 months or so. We haven't lost anybody, but we're losing young people to this disease, and many do not have the opportunity to even try sober housing. Like, it's just not an option. The families are broke. I mean, there's no money left. Their bank accounts are broke. You know, they usually owe everybody and the grandmother. I mean, everybody has given them money, and it just reaches a point where the money stops. So we're their last alternative, and I probably should have brought a couple of the letters tonight, but I had my granddaughter, so it was kind of, I couldn't prepare the way I needed to. But I just want to ask that you in the future would give that some consideration, and the recommendation of a hub. I mean, that was one thing that really disappointed me, was that the towns didn't choose to do some of these things together, like Bourne, Mashpee, and Falmouth are, in close proximity and could spend resources instead of individually as a group with each contributing, and it wouldn't cost nearly as much, So just something down the road to consider, and I hope you listen to that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say very quickly, if I can, I agree with your comments related to the housing, because it's what we prove. It's proven that our people, our children and others who struggle with the misuse, they get into services, and they get these addiction services, and then it's like goodbye, and there's nothing to follow them and help them live. There's few places. PCO, they have a hub and spoke. See, hub and spoke, but it's a group of people doing the work for these individuals because you need it. So thank you for bringing that up.
What
Go
I
ahead.
did, I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
Peter.
yeah.
I agree with really strongly agree with two of the comments. We had Sheriff Buckley here at a recent meeting, and she talked about that housing. She talked about that step-down housing being like crucial to real recovery. And I think I'm hoping that this is an adaptable plan that, we can say, as we go along, that housing, what can we do for housing? And the other thing is, when we started on this journey, we had a presentation that was kind kind of like a countywide presentation where they wanted us to dedicate a lot of our money to countywide services. And we said we needed to look and see what was important for Bourne, but I don't think we should eliminate countywide services. We need to look at how we can coordinate with local communities and make the services work for, enhance our dollars through cooperation. So
The hubs are interesting, so I won't say much more, but look into like the Peace Plymouth County Outreach Hub.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they do and how it's done. And it's only one day a week that you do this work for, you do a figure, but it's a lot. But anyway, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah. What I did is when Linda reached out to me a little bit ago, I sent that email to Sue Ross, who's our Affordable Housing Trust chairperson, to see if the Affordable Housing Trust can maybe try to take on having a discussion about the sober housing long term. So in the future, we'll discuss it and see if we can find other funding sources for it and see if we can help assist in that. So it's not just this group here because of the mini grants, but I'm gonna see if we can look at additional funding sources to see if we can make it a reality. Even if it's not Bourne, maybe it's the Upper Cape, as a way of trying to regionalize it and see if we can collectively pull together.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Are we online? Well, thank you for the presentation. Is that all from Terry and the group? And I'm sorry, Terry, I didn't mean, that was my brain. Anyhow, thank you for coming on your evening off. And everyone up in the, from HP, and we'll all see you soon.
Thank you.
All righty. Very good. That was a great conversation. I always love hearing about recovery sport. Okay, so moving on, we have further discussion on our comprehensive wastewater management plan and the watershed permits. Hot topic. So A on our agenda is wastewater advisory committee meeting from June 24th and a proposed CWMP revisions. So I guess I will start, MJ, am I starting there with the revisions that you proposed, or how do you want to start this conversation? I did have some comments. I know some others may too, so.
Right, so I'll just talk to you about the wastewater advisory committee meeting. There was a good discussion. They actually had two motions, and they met earlier this evening to approve the minutes so that they would be, I could send those to you, which I did. So, right after our meeting. The two motions that they made were one, and I don't want to use the term CWMP because right now we have a draft recommended plan that was a draft based on what we had submitted and some of the comments received. And so referring it as a draft report is, I think, more than what we did at the wastewater advisory committee. Anyway, the first motion was to recommend to edit the draft report to include the watershed permits from Agansett, Squatigue, and Phineas Harbor, and for any other watersheds that become NSA's nitrogen-sensitive areas, with the primary goal of sewering as much as can be, but recognizing we'll be using a combination of sewering and BANRAT throughout the town. So that was the first thing that they recommended. And then the second motion that they made was to recommend to the select board that with the recommendation of sewering as the first choice option, that working with Falmouth and discussing connecting to Joint Base Cape Cod for sewering options for Phineas Harbor, Agansett, Squatigue, and any other watersheds that could be connected. So those were the two outcomes really of the discussion, and really recommending that the select board take time to agree on what the recommended plan is, based on the comments that were received, and then to have a final draft of a recommended plan. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, I guess I'm just going to start very quickly. So, appreciate the work that was done on that and giving the revisions, but I think I'm confused because we clearly had, at our last meeting, we had discussed the wastewater advisory committee. Peter had tabled the discussion, and we had also agreed that their commission would be paused until further notice. So I think my confusion is, why did it meet when the select board's intention, and was pretty clear at our meeting that their mission was paused until further notice when we could direct a new charge. So I think that needs to be addressed here, because I was very confused to see a meeting posted immediately after we had our meeting. So I'm going to let anyone else speak on that before we continue.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discussion going back and forth on what to do with this advisory committee, and we did come to the conclusion that we should continue it, but just to pause to give the board an opportunity to figure out what the next steps were for the CWMP. I think that's the reason why Peter had requested the table, because we had some differences of opinion and we didn't have an opportunity to deliberate. And now I feel like the next steps were, that decision was made without a board having deliberations on it. And, we have a lot of actionable steps that we need to figure out for a scope of work for the watershed permitting. And I think there's value with the committee with a new charge. And we didn't have an opportunity to kind of, talk about what's the best direction and how that advisory committee can support us once we make the decisions about next steps for CWMP. So, yeah, I was actually kind of taken aback by, they're having this meeting and they're going like gangbusters, and we as a board, having the authority to decide on what the next step should be and having the opportunity to deliberate, and not and having that disregarded I was disappointed.
Yeah.
And not to dismiss any of the work.
No.
The work that they did is reflected in that CWMP plan. A lot, in some way, shape, or form, it's all been reflected in that plan. And this isn't about, saying like all that work is left without recognition. They did a lot of work. The work is done. The work is incorporated in the decisions that were made prior even to my tenure and during that time. And then, we hadn't decided on what the next steps were with the CWMP. And now we're being thrown all this information. I know it wasn't in a motion form, but if we have to put it in a motion form, I'm happy to make a motion to kind of suspend meetings and actions by the wastewater advisory committee until we have an opportunity as a board to decide the next steps for the CWMP, or even the reporting, and that scope of work we need to sort of outline and wrap our heads around with respects to the wastewater with watershed permitting application, and to issue them a new charge so they can have a focus and directed by the board. That's, I know it wasn't in a motion format, but it certainly was well stated. And, if I make the motion, that's the motion.
I think the motion's out of order at this point, because if you read the agenda says wastewater advisory committee meeting of June 24th. Doesn't say anything about, anything further than that, so.
But we had tabled it, Peter.
I know we did, but if we're gonna take it up again, like, and talk about it further, we can talk about on the 15th. The agenda should be better worded to do that.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I think I have a totally different take on what was decided at our last meeting. And then I think if you look at the minutes of the meeting, there was discussion about tabling. There was discussion about pausing the wastewater advisory committee. But there was also discussion about continuing the wastewater advisory committee and having the wastewater advisory committee make some recommendations specific to the draft of the report. And the motion, if you look at the minutes, the motion was to continue the wastewater advisory committee.
Yeah, because I made the motion to extend the appointments.
So
Right, to continue the wastewater advisory committee, but we also said with the understanding that it would be
paused.
paused until we make decisions about what the next steps are
Is
for
that
this.
part of the motion?
conservation.
I'm sorry if I'm
And
speaking
then,
out
I'm
of
just
order.
saying, I mean, there are several times we've met and not had motions, and the consensus has been understood, right?
I think in this situation, it wasn't clear. And I do feel like I would like some more information on what happened. And it was frustrating for me because I couldn't get on TV and see the meeting or something either, so.
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a 6-minute, the meeting was June 24th.
Well,
And the only meeting
that
today
one, okay.
was to approve the minutes.
Gotcha.
So it was just like to meet,
Yeah.
approve the minutes, so that the minutes would be presented, had been approved minutes and not draft minutes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it just wasn't very clear in the motion. And if the motion wasn't worded properly,
Well, it
we
was
should have
tabled,
fixed it.
right?
It's tabled.
In the minutes.
No, the motion
But
that
if we
was
approve the
made under
minutes,
that
then-
discussion was Peter Meyer moved and MJ Mastrangelo seconded to
that.
reappoint the,
The table, the CWMP conversation. That was tabled.
Right.
It was.
It was.
It was.
All right, so where do we go next here?
Right.
Well, the committee made the recommendations,
Okay.
okay?
So we've got the recommendations, and we'll just have to set it for another agenda
Yeah.
to discuss the committee appointments. I mean,
Well, we are reappointing them. It's just that, they are reappointed. It's just that.
correct.
We have one tonight, right, Keith?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we do.
So,
Okay, so what do we do now? What shall we do? Do we vote? We don't have to vote
There's
to
nothing to
accept
vote.
those,
They-
right? There's
they're
nothing
just
to vote.
sent
They've sent the
revisions.
recommendations. They're in the packet, correct?
No, they were not in the packet.
no, that
not in the
was,
packet, because I emailed it because
They hadn't been approved.
they were approved, the minutes have been approved now, so I emailed them and,
They'll be out. Okay.
I haven't even looked at them because I was on the road, so I,
it's fine. I only was giving the recommendation that there was a meeting on June 24th of the wastewater advisory committee. They met for a significant amount of time, and it was a pretty good discussion. And those are the two motions, and I'm just communicating the motions.
Okay.
so we can discuss this in a future agenda item when we've had time to look at the recommendations and then finalize the
Match it work.
report as a reference.
Okay, moving on. Okay, so we have CWMP revisions submitted by Apex. Who's going to speak on this? Is this something you're going to?
So included in your packet was a memo from Helen. And this is essentially, what she's providing here are revisions or corrections to table 2, to table 3, and to table 4, I believe.
yeah.
And table 4. In the phase 4 of the, phase 3 of the CWMP, the recommended plan.
Page 46, I think. Right.
It starts on 46,
Yeah.
yeah.
So after the discussion, after the board's discussion on May 28th, I believe, Helen took that back and has sent these revisions. So depending on the outcome of the board's discussion about whether to proceed with further development of the CWMP, this is available to be included at your discretion.
Her changes, you mean?
Yeah, her changes.
Okay, is that something we're gonna need a motion on this evening?
No, this is just follow-up from
From
her
our meeting, okay.
with the information.
Okay. I read it, it's pretty clear what she recommended.
It was all based on what, yeah,
Yeah.
the meeting,
The meeting, yeah, exactly.
comments from DP.
All right, do we have any questions from the board regarding the changes that were presented? Anyone? All right.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So it still is unclear as to whether or not the recommended plan is including recommended plan with and without watershed permits. Is there, what is the recommendation expressed here that it is with watershed permits?
It says, it's written in her letter at the
With?
bottom, her suggestion. It says, under the watershed, let me see, sorry.
She she's
Yep.
just incorporating both scenarios,
Right.
with and without.
Could we get a
Because we
red
don't
line
know if we're
version?
getting a
Could we get a
watershed
red
permit,
line
right?
version of this so we know what was changed? Because that's, it's really hard to determine
Oh, yeah.
what was changed and what wasn't changed, and,
In the tables, redlining the tables.
right.
Yeah.
And we haven't had any discussion about any revisions that select board members might have. We haven't had an opportunity to say, look at the report and say, I have a question about this in this table, and I don't know what she changed in these tables, so.
So it was my understanding that that was why we tabled that particular agenda item about the CWMP, and have on a future agenda determine what we're going to do with this plan. I thought that that was my understanding, and that's where I think some of the confusion came in, because we haven't decided what we're going to do with all the information and the CWMP.
All right, so we
Thus, the frustration of, what's different, what's changed, what are we incorporating?
all right, so we don't need a motion on it, so we have reviewed them. Is everybody satisfied, and we can move on to C?
Could I make a comment here? I am not satisfied with this. I don't find this acceptable. Table 2 says townwide recommended plan. It doesn't include whether it includes a watershed permit or doesn't include a watershed permit. When we had our last meeting on May 28th, I said to Helen that recommended plan is with a watershed permit, because in order to do 285 parcels for Magansett Squatigue, you have to have a watershed permit, because if you don't have a watershed permit, then you have to do 396 parcels. So somehow we need to have a process or set a workshop meeting that is dedicated to the issue of this report and to discuss issues in the report and whether or not we accept the report as written. I'm not prepared to accept this report.
we're
That's
not
my
accepting
point.
it. We're
That's
not
my
accepting
point.
the report.
That's
It's been
exactly my
tabled.
point, that we need to have that discussion.
Right.
So how are
future
we going to
agenda.
have an accepted report that's a result of our $600,000?
Well, currently, we don't. I mean, that's this is the final stages of it. She's made changes according to some recommendations. I mean, I know you were one person that wanted the changes, you had said. She did that, and we're at the end of it. So that's something, as Anne Marie said, we're gonna discuss at another time.
That's what we need to
That's why we
discuss.
tabled it at the last meeting, because it's a pretty big and lengthy conversation. It's, it's pretty serious, so we have to decide how are we going to talk about it. So.
Yeah. That was the whole point.
How are we going to talk about it? Like,
So-
are we
We
going to
need
set
to
a
have a
meeting to
future
talk
agenda
about it?
item.
For the CWMP, as we had suggested.
Is an agenda item, I mean, I don't know if we need a whole workshop, but, or meetings are packed, so I think a future agenda item where we
Future
can
agenda
have
item
some
is what we
clarity
had
on
agreed
the
upon.
direction of what we're going to do with this, use it as a reference tool if we can accept it, or
Right. Yeah, tonight was to review the changes and not to make motions or do any voting, as you said. So we're going to talk about it on a future agenda item. I think that's fair
And
enough.
how we bring it to closure,
Closure,
right?
right.
Which is what we need.
So what are the changes that we're reviewing?
Well, it's in the, she sent the letter. You got it in your packet, correct?
Yes, but
Okay.
what was changed?
You tell me. Were you able to review it?
Yes, could we have a red line version
Okay,
of
we can
the
request
final
that.
report
Marlene,
so
do you
that we
have any
understand what's been
comments here?
changed?
I'll request it. As you know,
It's done,
it's,
right?
yeah,
we're out of budget.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will request it.
See if she'll send it.
Helen did not commit to doing further analysis. So, I mean, I will request it. I can't guarantee that you will receive it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would think that we could at least get a document that would show with markups. That would be helpful, at least, so we can compare apples to apples.
Or a document that we can, that's in a format that we can do a compare.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. Okay, update from the town administrator on the notice of intent for filing for 2 watershed permits.
Thank you. So, last week I did file through the DEP electronic portal the town's WP 94 permit, which is the notice of intent for both Magansett-Squatigue and Phineas Harbor. The last time I checked my portal was yesterday. I did not have a chance to check it today. And as of yesterday, the status of it is in review. So it has been it has been filed, it has been received, and it is in review by DEP.
Perfect. Any comments, questions from the board?
I have a question about what is happening with the Board of Health and the regulations, and what impact does this have? Because I caught some of that meeting, and I'm just trying to understand what's in play as far as when they can come together and determine what their regulations are, because it has to be timed properly with the filing, is what I was trying to understand from that meeting, so.
So, the Board of Health has totally independent authority to place any local regulations that they choose, to enact any local regulations they choose. It does not have to be coordinated with a watershed permit application.
Okay, it came up that if a system for a new build, a new septic, and if the notice of intent, if the Board of Health regulations weren't filed at the time, there would be a gap. And even though the Select Board supersedes the Board of Health, that there would be,
The Select Board
there was a pause on permits?
does not supersede.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what they were told as far as what they're deciding or not deciding on regulations, how that impacted the filing, and whether or not.
So it did not
system
impact the
approval
filing
would
at
be
all.
paused. Okay,
It did not, the filing was made
right,
as I was directed.
right.
The filing was made
Mhm.
the middle of last week.
Okay. So,
The
Why-
Board of Health has independent jurisdiction to discuss local regulations at their discretion.
okay, I guess my question was, why would there be a pause in the permitting of septic if the timing wasn't?
So my suggestion is that this is something that should be discussed at the Board of Health.
Mhm.
The Board of Health regulations are their regulations. They're in a separately elected regulatory body.
Okay, so the thing that was troubling, I guess, was MJ clarified that she was speaking as a citizen and had concerns and comments, and then their motion at the end of the meeting was to wait until they considered the comments from MJ, from the board, select board, is how they worded it, before they decided. And that was disturbing to me, because I didn't think,
I don't believe the select board has taken any,
didn't say the select
well, the way
action.
Miguel
Yeah.
worded the motion,
Yeah.
he was talking about from,
on.
speaking from the select board. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how the motion was worded at the end of that meeting. Because that came across as, even though MJ was very clear in the beginning, it came across as comments from the select board.
So the select board has not taken any position on the Board of Health regulations.
Right.
And the Board of Health's jurisdiction is completely independent.
Any other comments on the NOI? Go ahead.
I just want to follow up on that. I was very clear that I was speaking, and Miguel said Ms. Mastrangelo's comments, so
He did.
they were my comments. I was very clear on saying I was not representing the select board. The Board of Health is, because they closed their public hearing on the regulations, they are going to re-advertise a public hearing to have another open public hearing on the revisions of the regulations. And there were questions from the Board of Health themselves about the regulations and what should be in them and how they should handle them. So I think that they'll have another public hearing towards the end of July once they can post it.
Okay. Just trying to understand it. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else, Peter?
I'm good.
I'm all set.
All right, anybody in the public have any comments? Anyone online? All right, hearing none, NOI is filed for the people at home, for the two watersheds, just so I'm clear. Okay. Licensing and events. So licensing, we have a new Class 1 dealer's license for more yacht sales brokerage only, 30 Shaker Drive, Bourne. Do we have anyone here for that, to hear that?
I don't see Phil.
Okay.
Mr. Moore.
All right, are we voting these separately, or are we gonna do them all at once?
Please do them separately.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion to approve the,
I
do
have
you have any
just
questions?
make
Yeah,
a-
go ahead,
So we have changed our format now so that when we get a cover sheet on these, but the background applications, all those things, you have to go into town hall to see them. One of the things that I would like to have included in the cover sheet is the name of the applicant. Because the name of the applicant is not, so if I don't know who this person is, unless I go to town hall and review the documents, I'm not gonna know who the person is. So on all these applications for licenses, permits, events, and everything, I would like to have the name of the applicant included on the cover sheet. Thank you.
get that, we got that, Molly?
Make a motion that we approve the Class 2 dealer's license for Place Capital Motors LLC, doing business as PCAP Motors at 1 Crane Circle, with the conditions of 10-car maximum and no service, washing.
I thought we were doing first one,
Yeah, that's what we were doing.
the Moore yacht. We didn't do a motion for that yet. Sorry, Peter.
No, but that's the way our packet is. I read the first one, and that's, it was in the packet, it's not in the order of the.
This was the supplement. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This was sent as the supplement.
The Class 1 dealer license for more yacht sales.
Yes.
That was the first one on the agenda.
That's the first one, Peter.
So that's in the supplemental packet that was received.
Yes.
Motion to approve the Class 1 dealer's license for more yacht sales, Inc. brokers only with Ameritrail boat trailers.
Okay.
Second.
Peter, motion by Peter.
Want to pass that back down?
I have the supplemental.
No, it's going
Go
back.
back to.
And Marie. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, anyone on the audience, on TV? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote. Emery?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Melissa? Yes. There, all right, unanimous on more yacht sales. Okay, moving on. Number 2 is Class 2 dealer's license for Plaza. Sorry if I said that right. Plaza Capital Motors LLC, doing business as PCAP Motors, 1 Crane Circle, Bourne. Do we have anyone here for that? Speak on that. Okay, hearing none. Any further discussion, questions for that? All right, do I have a motion?
Approved class dealer's license for Plaza Capital Motors LLC, doing business as PCAP Motors at 1 Crane Circle with the conditions of a 10-car maximum, with no service, washing, or repair of vehicles on the property. That's my motion.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any further discussion? All right. From the audience, online, all right, hearing none. Roll call vote. Emery?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Melissa? Yes. Unanimous, there. None stayed, none. Okay, moving on. Number 3, Farmers Market Permit, Spicy Waters Distillery, sampling and off-premise sales, Canal Region Farmers Market, Thursday, July 3rd through 8/28/2025, 3 to 7 p.m., Buzzards Bay Park. Do we have anyone here for that?
Oh, here
You
I
are
am.
fast.
Welcome, I'm back again. I was just here recently for the Sandwich Bourne Farmers Market. And I just wanted to, especially, I understand that this is on public property. So I wanted to make myself available in case anybody had any questions, would be if there's any of the changes of the procedures, which there aren't going to be, but I wanted to make myself available for you at this time.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions of our friends at Farmers Market? Okay, do I have a motion?
Is this in a supplemental packet as well?
Yes.
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 Yeah, all right, so let me pull up the supplemental packet.
And I am under the understanding, as I see as the licensing went through the different departments, that the police chief has said that a police detail would have to be hired for that particular day because alcohol is being served on that.
Yeah.
I will be very honest with you and very frank. I don't know how, it will not be, because of the cost of paying for the detail coming out of we wouldn't make any money that day. So we're going to pick and choose, and we will apply but it wouldn't be for all the dates listed. It just wouldn't be cost effective. So I wanted to make that clear that that's our intention. Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
So I guess my question to the board is that, is this going to be a license that would be open-ended on for the beginning date and the end date, and then all we would need to do is file the appropriate paperwork to the police department to hire a detail? Say if we picked, I don't know, the last Thursday of the month of July.
That might be a question for the town administrator's office there, or
It needs to be specific in the application of the dates that you're going to be actually on the premise. It can't be arbitrary and give a range and then tomorrow you tell us that you're going to be there the next day. The license is for the specific dates according to the ABCC. So we have to know that, and that's how the application needs to be filed. So the file was for a range of every Thursday. So you can come back and amend it if you want. That's unfortunately the process.
Right. You see the situation that we're in, I mean, because of the expense of the detail. So that's why we really weren't even found this out until it started going through the process of the police chief. The other farmer's market is on private property at the Sagamore Inn, so that's why we never came to mind.
May I?
Please.
So, if the action is not going to match the application, so if it's not every Thursday between that range of dates, I do not recommend that
We vote
you
it.
approve this tonight. We need date specific to date, you as the licensing authority need to be specific on which dates you're allowing the action on the premise. So,
Yeah.
and I will say that the police chief, I will say, when we reviewed the farmer's market, we were told there was not going to be alcohol. This is coming in as a change after the farmer's market was approved. That is totally acceptable. However, the police chief has made it very clear that this is the Buzzards Bay Park, it's town-owned property. We are not comfortable recommending you move forward without a detail.
Because also around the latter part of that time, the concerts start next week, and so from 6 o'clock on, 6 to 7, you're gonna have people out.
Right.
You know.
And that's why I'm here. I wanted to be, you people have been wonderful and so that's why I waited. I wanted to speak on this directly so that there'd be no surprises. So, I mean, and I understand. So, may I ask a question? So let's say I wanted that last Thursday of July, and I would then apply to be put on the agenda and to have a separate, just a one-day pouring license? Is that what I would be asking for?
So you can do a set of dates. So if you want to do 3 Thursdays in the rest of the summer, you can come forward with those 3 specific dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Because right now, the application is, I believe the application is every
Thursdays,
Right.
Every
July
Thursday.
3rd through August
Thursday, and
20th.
we've already lost, well, there was last Thursday it
Yeah.
began, and then tomorrow, or this coming week, the 3rd, whatever the day is.
Third,
The
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
3rd, yes.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't gonna happen.
And I just want to be clear also, it's for sampling and sale. It's not for a, a garden
No.
for sitting around and actually
Walk around with.
No.
drinking. Right, it
No.
is
You're
just
getting
for,
like a sip.
it's a,
The state of
it's a
Massachusetts,
1 ounce.
it's not even an ounce.
Yes, I think it's a quarter,
Yeah,
it's a
very good.
quarter
It's
ounce.
a quarter of an ounce.
A quarter ounce and only
This is the
sales.
limoncello, right?
Yes,
So-
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, just to want to make sure that was
Right.
the same arrangement as well. It's not for a garden type of, okay.
Okay, so what do we could take this, should we just, should we deny it or just table it till
No,
next week?
you don't have to deny it.
We can
Just
table
don't-
it till next week. We won't
Till
take
the
any
15th.
action.
Well,
15th, we're meeting on the 15th,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It
well,
would be the 15th.
No.
please do not
Yeah.
make it date specific.
Okay.
We need the
To let them
information
get
from.
everything. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you tell me when it's ready. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you contact the office and you
Yep.
specify this date,
Are you requiring 3 dates, or could it be?
no, whatever, you
Okay.
tell us.
Okay.
You tell us when you're going to be there, and then we'll put it before the board.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate, and then would you want me to come back in again?
You don't have to.
You don't have to come back.
We'd
We'll-
love
we'll
to
put
see
it
you
on.
again.
Yes, as much as we'd love to. We won't make you come late at night if you don't have to.
No, and I don't mind that. I mean, but like I said, I wanted to make everything
Just depends on the
upfront.
application.
Sure.
We appreciate that.
Content.
Yeah, if the application is essentially the same as everything we've discussed tonight, except for you're specifying the exact dates.
Right.
Then my advice is you don't need to come back.
Okay.
If anything else is also
Yeah.
changed in the
Right.
application, then we may want you to come back.
All right, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Thank you.
So one more last question. Again, I'm a former teacher. I'm learning this as I go along. So I would go through, say, Maria Simone and she's been wonderful. I just want to put that on record. She's wonderful. And put the dates in there, and then we'll proceed.
Yes.
Very good. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
All right, so we have,
Take no action.
Motion that we take no action.
yes, thank you.
No.
Second.
All right, no action. Peter. All right, MJ. Second, okay, Anne Marie, roll call
Yes,
vote, I'm
yes.
sorry. Jean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
MJ,
Yes.
Melissa, yes, abstained. No, no. Sorry. I know, it's 500. There's obviously nobody gonna say no or abstain. Okay. Moving on. Consideration of events. The Soul Bridge Connections, use of Monk's Park for free guided meditations on the beach with use of a small speaker. Sundays, July 13th through August 31st, 2025. This is in our packet. And they have asked for us to waive, where am I? Sorry. Waiver of
Start
the
time.
special events policy. Can you explain that a little more? what
Yeah,
they're
the
asking?
special events policy has a time that it can't start on Sundays before 10 o'clock. So she's asking for a waiver because the speaker is actually considered by state law that it is considered entertainment, having amplification. So she's asking for the waiver. And just as a reminder, there is no waiver for any parking in this request because of the restriction of the peak season between July 1st and Labor Day. So that is not being requested or asked, so I just want to make sure that, and she's fully aware of that restriction, okay?
Any, Marlene, any thoughts on this? No?
Nope.
Okay. I mean, I think, Monk's Park is kind of, there are some neighbors, but there's nobody in the direct vicinity. I mean, there's a house over there, and there's some on the Tohoto and the Bay. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll have to, let me go around and see what the select board thinks about the 8 a.m. start on a Sunday morning. So, go ahead, Peter. You have any comments?
I think it's rather early, but I mean, I don't know how loud can this meditation music really be. I mean, it's hey, if they want to get up that early in the morning and do their exercise, all the power to them.
And if it's just a speaker, right? So go
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
MJ.
I was wondering what kind of speaker it is. I mean, is it like a portable thing? I mean, how
Karaoke
loud is
machine?
it gonna be? I mean,
I
'cause
know, 8 a.m.'s loud for amplification of noise on a Sunday morning.
If somebody doesn't like singing
and do
bowls,
you
that's
really
just
need
not
a
going
lot
to
of
be.
amplification?
And there is residence surrounding Monk's Park.
So
Maybe she could
and
get it at a
over
certain
water. I mean,
decibel
the
until
music
10.
goes over water like.
I have my neighbor's
this
bowl.
stuff?
Does amplify it.
I think it's a smaller speaker, however, I want to remind everybody that there is a noise bylaw.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that is not exempt from the waiver request either. So, and also because this application is for a longer duration, if there are any complaints, you have the ability to call them in and ask and question them as to what they're going to do to mitigate things. And you
If it
have the ability
continues.
also to remove the application and the use if it's not going to be managed in a way that is acceptable to the community and you. You are the authority for this. So there's a noise bylaw waiver. It's 150 feet from the point of origin. So that has to be maintained. And then again, you can have the ability to review it if there are any complaints. That you can bring in the applicant and, because it's using town property. So, okay?
I don't think we'll see the Board of Health going out with decibel readers,
I mean,
listening,
if
measuring
it's a
sound.
speaker, it may not, if it's a person if the speaker is on the mic, it may not be too bad. And if it's a small speaker, it could be a Bluetooth speaker for all we know. We don't know what does small speaker mean, I have a Bluetooth speaker that's kind of loud, but it wouldn't harm my neighbors too much, probably.
Well, I have a
One
flip.
that's this big that
loud.
projects ridiculously
My
loud.
husband has one that's that way.
Yes, I don't know. My husband weeds with his NASCAR
Bluetooth.
crank.
Does he have
louder
the
than he has
JBL
it
one, that JBL that kind of, you can hear it, your neighbors, that's what Tony has, yeah. So, okay, all right, moving on. So any other comments from the board? Or
I mean, I don't have a problem with it starting at 8 a.m. if they didn't have the speakers. But that defeats the whole purpose of having meditation music, right? In meditating.
Could we include something in the motion that says that we approve it and provide the, whatever the wording is about the waiver of the 8 AM rule, provided that the select board be notified if there are any complaints received by the select board's, the selectman town administrator's office, so that if there are complaints, we're aware of them and we can say we're gonna undo the waiver for the speaker. I mean, if that's really the issue. Because without the speaker, could they just do it? I mean,
Well,
what does that mean?
I think they, either way, they still need to be in compliance with the noise bylaw.
Yeah, so if it does get too loud, I gotta know, so it's, the neighbors talk, and.
Yeah, they might hear, the neighbors won't hear it. They'll hear it across over on the other side in Buzzards Bay, because it travels across the water usually, so. It's, if they complain, there'll be an onset, so they'll be calling Wareham. All right, so do we have a motion? Somebody want to make that motion?
It's a tricky motion, because I think they should still be in compliance with the noise bylaw.
Make a motion that we approve the application, or it's gonna be two motions. Approve the application from the Soul Bridge Connections for the use of Bunch Park for free guided meditation and Reiki sessions on Sundays, July 13th through August 31st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Or are you making another motion, you said?
Afterwards, yes.
All right, so we have a motion by Peter, a second by Jean. Roll call vote, Emery?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ? Melissa, yes. Abstained, any opposed? None, hearing none, 5-0. Okay.
And then the second motion is motion to approve motion to approve the waiver of the one-day entertainment time of events starting at after 10 a.m. So the group can meet at 8 a.m. on Sundays, and any noise will be subject to the noise bylaw in town.
Second. That's good.
All right, we have a second motion from Peter, second from Jean. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Emery?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Melissa, yes. Hearing 5-0. Any opposed, abstained. All right, moving on. Awesome. Good night. So consent agenda. We do these all at once. I'll read them off for all of us. So consent agenda A, Zoning Board of Appeals appoint Associate Member Joseph Spinell to the open regular position with a term ending June 30, 2030. Appoint Keith Barber to the Wastewater Advisory Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2026. Appoint Charles Devlin to Constable with a term ending June 30th, 2026. Authorize Town Administrator to carry over 17 hours of vacation time to be used in FY26. Declare generator at Community Building surplus to trade in value of $2,200 being credited with replacement project. Library donations $10 and $50 from anonymous patrons. Recreation donation $1,000 from Comfy Kids. Authorize the town administrator to execute the purchase and sale agreement for 88 Puritan Road. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to have H carried, taken outside.
I'm sorry?
H.
H
H.
removed.
Separately.
Motion that we accrue the consent agenda through A through G.
Second.
Take it out alone, you mean?
Yeah, my motion is that, yes, it takes to take
All
A.
right, so, the motion is made by Peter. Second by whom?
Jean.
Jean.
Jean, okay.
H.
All right, roll call vote. Emery?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Melissa, yes. 5-0. Okay.
Now H we took out, so we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, I just want to refresh on like what exactly the status of this is, how we decided on the $50,000, and just refresh me on when it was approved by town meeting, that's all.
This was actually coupled with the Austin property purchase, the CPA project. So if you remember Tim's presentation, or if you remember the presentation, Tim also had this piece for a stormwater restoration project. So it was tied together as a package with the large CPA project.
Okay, was it a separate CPA request for 50,000, or was it?
It was a separate one.
Okay, so it was a separate CPA request for
Yep.
50,000, okay. And then just understanding the document itself, the things that are, is this gonna be redone for crossing out the eminent domain thing, or is that wording staying in? That was unclear.
Yeah, the wording is going to, it's not ideal. The wording is staying in but struck because the seller struck it and then signed it. We're not taking it by eminent domain. It's not a taking. It is a purchase. The seller took it upon themselves to strike it in the document and then sign it. So.
Okay.
So generally, those things are initialed or something when they're struck by the
Unfortunately, I am not in a position to advise the seller.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. That's what realtors and lawyers do.
Make a motion, we authorize the town administrator to execute the PNS agreement for 88 Puritan Road.
All right, motion by Peter. Do we have a
Second.
second by Anne Marie? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And Jay?
Abstain.
All right, Melissa, yes. 5, 1,
4.
sorry, 4. Sorry, yeah, I knew that. Sorry, I knew you were gonna correct me too, but.
0, 1.
4, 1,
4, 0, 1.
401, there was no.
Abstentions.
Yeah, you know. She threw me off, correcting me and crap. Sorry.
The clerk, gotta get it right.
All right, so that's that. All right, so moving on. Town Administrator's Report, number 11.
Thank you. I have a pretty short one tonight. I do want to let the public know that our printing and mailing vendor accidentally sent out the wrong property tax bills. The corrected FY 2026 property tax bills were reprinted over the weekend and mailed yesterday, June 30th. We sincerely apologize for any confusion this may cause. Please read your bill when you receive it and disregard and do not pay the bill labeled FY 2025. Please wait until you receive the FY 2026 bill, which will be later this week, and pay that one. The online payment system is correct, so if you pay through the town's website, you will be paying the FY 2026 bill. Likewise, the correct files were sent to mortgage companies, so if your property taxes are paid through a mortgage escrow, those payments will be accurate. I'd like to encourage any members of the public who are interested in serving on the Charter Review Committee to send a letter of interest to the Town Administrator's Office at Town Hall. We hope to bring those names forward to the Select Board for appointment at the meeting on July 15th. The draft 2025 Regional Policy Plan has been released for public comment and can be found on the Cape Cod Commission's website for review. And lastly, ISWIM has diverted 13.29 tons of food waste from the landfill this far in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Minutes from 6/3/2025 and 6/17.
Motion approved minutes of 6/3 and 6/17/2025 as submitted.
Just double checking. Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Peter,
Second.
second from Jean. All right, roll call vote. Anne Marie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
And Melissa, yes. 5-0-0. Okay. Correspond? Oh, no, sorry, committee reports. Didn't want to pass over that. Oh, committee reports. Anyone?
Recently, the Bourne Community Engagement Committee meeted for the first time this year, because we finally had an application. So we're also doing a little more outreach and public outreach through the Bourne Cable TV. Liz Brown has put together some opportunities to kind of promote the community engagement and the types of events and things like that that we're hoping to people will bring forth.
Nice, thank you. Jean?
Southside Fire Station, we did have a meeting on June 24th. It was pretty quick. Marlene had filled us in on the demolition and the procedure involved with that, but I think what I wanted everyone to really know was that on July 22nd, we're going to have our next meeting, and the project manager, architect, everyone should be there in person with some updated concept plans, which will be pretty exciting. So,
Thank you.
something to look forward to.
Anyone else?
I swam, a building
July
committee couldn't
22nd.
meet,
Okay.
because we didn't have a quorum, so we postponed that meeting or canceled it. Members went up recently to Whitman to look at a project that they're doing up there that could be similar in scope to what we're proposing for here for Ice Swim. So, I mean, it's moving along, but, it's a lot of work, so. And that's all I have for committees at this time.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? All good?
I just want to say that I watched the Finance Committee meeting last night, and there was a really good memo from the fire chief about the overtime in the fire department, and I think would be good for the select board to get that memo from the fire chief.
Okay, thank you. All right, future agenda items related to correspondence and other items for discussion.
It looks like there's vacancies of positions.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot correspondence. Jean, geez, I couldn't forget you on that.
I gotta get to my page.
Getting ahead of myself, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, that's right.
94.
94, I was gonna say, it's below 50 somewhere here. Okay. Correspondence for July 1st, 2025. A, PWQC Rain Garden Project, email update from Keith Barber. B, Zoning Board of Appeals, J. Spinelli membership promotion request. C, Bourndale Road cleanup, B. Morrison request for trash disposal assistance. D, Upper Cape student parking, M. Pool Polo inquiries. E, Cape Cod Canal Pipeline Relocation Project Fact Sheet. F, Wings Neck Sidewalks, email from P. Waters regarding conditions. G, Bourne Wareham Race Amity Group thank you card. H, Xfinity Letter, information on payments, discounts, and Cartoon Network. I, Xfinity Letter, Netflix standard subscription price increase. And J, UCCRTS minutes, May 8th, 2025.
Wonderful. All right, future agenda items related to correspondence and other items for future discussion.
I know it's been out there that the police and fire department both have vacancies within the rank and file. I think it's like roughly 6 in each department. And so if that's the case, I would like to hear from each chief to see why we have so many vacancies. If it's retirements, is it people leaving and going lateral promotions? Is it lateral transfers? Is it people not working out? So, because with these vacancies, it may equal more cost than overtime because of it. And so I'm just curious, just for an update, why we have so many vacancies at this point.
Anyone else? All right, next meeting dates, July 15th, virtually only, Select Board, July 25th, Annual Retreat, that's a big day. July 29th, Board of Sewer Commissioners. August 5th, Select Board, August 19th, Board of Sewer Commission, and August 26th, Select Board. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Anne Marie. Second by Jean, and we are officially adjourned.
Roll call vote.
See, that wasn't so bad. Roll call. Anne Marie,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
MJ, Melissa. Oh, did you say yes, or did you want to, you didn't want to stay? MJ
Said yes.
Okay, I missed it. It was.